Today, we're talking about basic chess tips to get you past your next ELO hurdle. The increase in your skill level by consistently applying basic tips is insane. But I'm not going to be giving you a list of 30 proven chess positions because that's not what you need. The actual positions are the least important part of these basic chess tips because what you need to understand is the psychology behind each tip. Then the tactics of how to use that psychology in your chess games. Here are 4 outstanding ways to improve your game immediately. And if you do all of these, I guarantee that your ELO will improve. I've seen this work and the results are mind-blowing. The very first thing is center control. The center of the board are these 4 squares in the very center of the chessboard. And sometimes the pawns even end up in this configuration, but there's 3 squares this way and 3 that way. There's a 4 this way, 4 that way. There's, diagonal is 3 that way, 3 that way. It's exactly the center of the board, and it's the most power. Generally, when you have the most pieces that can see into and through these 4 squares, you have the most likelihood of winning the game. And your opponent may realize that intellectually, but they have a gut feel. But the thing is that it's going to have a great impact when you make sure that you have the foresight to look into how to make this the place that your game focuses on. So let's just take some like a standard chess game. So queen's pawn up to d4, and they respond with d5. Sorry, and then that's normal. This pawn has visibility to this center square, of course this square as well, and this one is here and there. So we have some power going on to the center squares. And so then if you did the queen's gambit here, then you would be having visibility to here and here. But now that white has more visibility onto the board. And so black might respond with the knight to protect the pawn, and also look at this square as well. So this knight has visibility into more squares on the center square. So then white might respond with getting this pawn up, which lets it see into this center square, and then black might respond with a knight up, threatening this pawn, of course, and also have visibility to this center square, and then very standard opening stuff. And so each piece has a visibility into the center, and just one away, the queen has visibility all the way through. Both queens do. So that's also some visibility into the center square until they're blocked by a piece, that sort of thing. But that's keeping in mind how the center square works and how that's going to affect the game. So keep that in mind always when you can. Make it part of your strategy, part of your thought process, and just make that happen. Just make it part of how you think about the chess game. So the next concept to discuss, the powerful psychological piece. It's a tactic, it's a strategy, it's a chess tip, is get your king safe and keep your king safe. You want your king to be as safe as possible, protected, and so you keep that in mind. So one of the things is castling with your king. So let's just come up with let's look at a regular opening strategy, and say look at the King's Indian, where you would get your king established as quickly as possible. So you would come out with your knight because you're wanting to clear this area away. And so they might respond with their knight here, and then you might want to just put your pawn up. It's a very standard bunch of openings, and you're getting your king safe. And then say they respond with a knight. So we have the 3 knights opening so far, and then you get your bishop out, say right here, that protects your knight, and also looks at these squares, and we talked about the center. So we've got a lot of visibility into the center by both sides. And then when they move a pawn up, say that they do that, then you castle. With one hand, you move the king 2 places and put the rook on the other side. Some people do it with 2 hands, and I've seen even master players do it with 2 hands. I don't recommend that. I guess if you're in some kind of speed blitz thing, well, yeah, do it as quick as you can. But generally speaking, one hand works a lot better than 2 because you can get confused and etc. Anyway, the king is safe. Notice there's one square on this side. Also, the king cannot move through check or have anything to do with check, and can't castle out of check. If the king is in check, it can't castle. You have to block it or whatever. So the king has to be not in check and not move through check or anything to get to it. And you can't have moved these two pieces. You could castle. But suppose that your other pieces were out of the way as well. You'd had enough moves that these pieces were. You can castle on the other side as well. But the king can only move two places, 1, 2, and then the rook goes in the other side, and that's castling. Now you have two squares on the other side. See the difference there? This pawn is unprotected. You're going to have to take some kind of a way to protect this pawn. And so you can move your king over and protect the pawn, or you might have to move this up, or of course this knight is protecting it, which is a good thing. So that's the difference. This is called long castling on this side, 1, 2 here, and you have two squares. And then short side castling is here, 1, 2, and 2 squares. That is keeping your king safe. And sometimes it may not be advantageous to castle early in the game. It might be important to wait. Sometimes your pawns had to go do battle other ways, and so they're not ready to castle. So you have to pick your castling based on what your pieces are at the time. But that is powerful psychological impact. When you've got your king safe and your opponent is still struggling to get their pieces off the starting line, that is something that you can count on to be an advantage for you in the way that the game is being thought of. And there's a lot of things that go into thinking and strategic psychology of the game, of your own self, and that of your players as well. Now then, the next thing is piece development. We've kind of covered piece development. You want to get your pawns out. You can't get this bishop out unless you get this pawn out of the way. You can't get this bishop out. Well, you can either two pawns. So you'd have, say, this pawn or that pawn, then you can move your bishop, however. But you have to move a pawn up to get your bishop out. So the real common is an opening either king's pawn or queen's pawn. Those are the two most common openings in chess. And so this responds with the d5, and then say you've got your knight out, and then they might respond with a knight as well, and so then you respond. And so generally, I at least use my brain to go from left to right, and I get my knights out and then my bishops. And then I try to get this bishop on the other side of this pawn before I move it up to get this bishop out. So it's my move, I think. I may have lost track, I don't know. And so then say that they move up here, I don't know. And so then you move here, and you've done whatever you can from left to right and getting ready to castle and get your pieces out. And so then they might get their knight out on this side, and then if you got your bishop out of the way, then you'd be free to castle the next time. And so maybe they would get their bishop out here and getting ready to protect their knight or whatever in case you came up to take their knight. And so then you move your king over, and now you've castled. Your pieces are all developed, not quite. I guess the next thing would be to move the queen. So let's just make some move with black, get your queen out, and now your rooks can see each other. When the rooks can see each other, they're far more powerful. They're lined up, they take care of each other, and they can strike and attack as well. So I guess that the last thing we'd do, if say they made some move and then you moved here, then all of your pieces have moved off their starting square. You don't really want to move this unless you have a purpose for it, so maybe you would have moved it here to get lined up on the king and maybe start clearing out this this file so that you could attack that file with your rook. Of course, your opponent's going to see that, etc. But this is great piece development. And then as you play the game, then you go forth and you think, well, I'm going to go ahead and move this up so it's protected. And then maybe you decide, maybe they decide to attack your bishop. And so you have a decision to make. So you move your bishop here, attacking this knight at least. So at least you have something to go on. And they might move something up. Maybe they would move their bishop here to attack your bishop. You have a decision to make. And of course you would attack that because it would, it's an option. I mean, you can do whatever you want. Of course, their queen would come and get your bishop, etc. Be an even trade. Each of those is worth 3 points. But that is piece development. So you want to develop your pieces. I generally think of it as from left to right, and I think of it as knights before bishops. And generally speaking, unless you have a plan and or want to try something new and different, which go for it. It's fun to try new and different things, and it's it's a lot of fun. It's what chess is all about. All right, so that is the one way to look at piece development. And the thing is that if you're comfortable with how you develop your pieces, you're going to play better. It's going to be fantastic. Now the next thing to do is pawn structure. Say that your opponent has developed a pawn structure, and somehow he's got his pawns all the way in the structure. This looks pretty formidable. So you think, what am I going to do? Well, you could think of going and attacking the pawns from the front. You'd attack this pawn and then this one. You could do that. It's a lot easier and more powerful to go and attack the pawns from the back rather than the front. So let's see what that would look like. Say you had this this incredible pawn structure going on, and you'd think, crud, what am I going to do? How am I going to deal with this? And so say that you had you attack the pawn structure from the back one first. So if you had say this pawn was had gotten out of the way somehow, gotten taken out by your opponent. And so you had your queen looking at that pawn. And then say that this queen moved up here without thinking, which is, I know that's hope chess. But if they did that, then you could go here and start attacking that pawn structure, that pawn chain from the back rather than from the front. Of course, they would want to move up and get out of the way so you couldn't take anything else. But then if you had this bishop looking at that pawn, then even if they have a bishop and another one, let's say that they were panicking and got their knight here, then you could go and take this pawn here. See what I'm doing? I'm attacking the pawn chain from the back, and ideally that's what you would like to do if at all possible. And that's the way to think of that. It's hard, it's difficult, but those are the four strategies, the four tactics, strategy tactics, psychological impact that I wanted to cover today, and those applied consistently is going to improve your ELO. Thank you.